What I'm going to show you involves you changing just one thing. And I know all of you are like, well, I can change one thing. You're right. Just one thing as it results to, or as it relates to your money. And the second thing is you have to add one step. So that's it. Change one thing, add one step. Change where your money goes first, and then add one step, which is called the infinite banking concepts, and everything financially will change. But here's the bad news. Everything will change. What I'm going to teach you will completely transform your financial future. That much I can tell you with the utmost certainty. But here's the problem. It's not like a light switch. It's not like what you're going to learn and what I can teach you is going to immediately turn everything around tomorrow. You're going to wake up and everything, you're going to just walk out to your garage and you've got your dream car. You're going to walk out of your dream house. This takes time. But here's the beauty of that. I think you already know that. Everything worth something in life takes time. Building wealth, accomplishing your dreams, they all take time. And I think one of the big problems when I see a lot of people is they want to just rush through it. They just want to like hit a button or have an easy button and just all of a sudden like they're where they want to be. All their dreams are come true. That sounds great, but you would miss so much of the journey. My journey's been so up and down that I would be so upset if I missed those ups and downs. Now, looking back, when you're in those low places, it sucks. It's hard. But what you learn during that period of time in your life, when you're at those low points, is the single most valuable thing you'll ever learn in your life. And I got news for you. When everything's good and you're just cruising along and you're successful, you're not learning a lot. Because we get to this point where we think we've got everything and everything's under control. And then all of a sudden, God's got a weird way of just kind of knocking us back down. And that's because we have something important to learn that somehow we missed. And I'm not saying any of that is exactly what's going to resonate for you today, but I'm simply going to show you how to take back control of your money. I'm going to show you that by teaching you how to be your own bank. And that's going to involve changing one thing, and that is where your money goes first, and adding one step, and that is the process. Now, Christy was explaining the infinite banking concept, and I think it's important right now, before I even get into the presentation, that I explain this as well. It is a process, not a product, but it is a process of taking back the banking functions in your life. That is the definition of this. And if you just think about what you've been taught about money, you've been taught to take the money that you earn. You've been taught to take all of the money that you go out there and you trade hours for dollars for. You take this, and what were you taught to do with it? You were taught to take this and deposit it in what? Someone else's bank. True. We all were taught the same thing. I am no different than you. You are no different than the other people on this webinar. We were all taught to make money by trading hours for dollars, take our dollars that we earned and put them in the bank. Then, this is where it gets a little bit convoluted. We have also been told to do things like take a big chunk of the money that we earn and put it into a 401k, which I'll cover a little bit later. Okay, we've also been taught pay our bills first. How many of you would agree with that? In the chat right now, if that's what you've been taught with money, trade hours for dollars, take the money you earn, put it in the bank, and pay your bills first. Please put yes in the chat. It should be 100% of you. It really should, because that's what you've been taught to do. But you see, if you trace it all the way back, and I'm going to give you a really good book recommendation. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. Many of you have probably read this, but read it again. It's a really easy read. However, it's written in a different tongue. So you kind of have to articulate gold with dollars. You have to articulate certain things. So reading it twice or three times is really important. I've read that book more times than I can count. And I've done the audiobook, which I find to be a little bit more, beneficial for how I learn. But in that book, they talk about the 7 rules of gold. I have taken that, and many of you maybe have watched my YouTube channel at the Chris Naugle, or maybe you've watched my TEDx talk, which was a letter that I wrote to my daughter. My daughter is now 4 years old. A letter to my daughter, basically articulating the 6 laws of wealth in parables, and I call it Rethink Money. So whether or not you've seen it or not, it goes through and it teaches my daughter the 6 laws of wealth. But the first law of wealth is really the only one I want to get across before we get into this. And the first law of wealth says you must keep 10% of what you earn. Let me repeat that. The first law of wealth, the first rule of gold in The Richest Man in Babylon, you must keep 10% of what you make. Now, the first law of wealth doesn't say, you must make money and then pay your bills first and keep what's left. Now, does it? No, no, no. But that's what we've been taught. It says keep 10% first and then pay everybody else. Now, I know that's backwards. That's completely backwards for what you've been taught. And because we've kind of gone through and we've been told a lot of lies about money, a lot of times what we have to kind of do is first change our mindset around money, because that's what's broken, really. I have 16,000 plus clients. I'm not bragging, but we have 16,000 plus clients in the United States, plus clients in Canada. That's a lot of people who we have touched, a lot of people whose lives we have changed. Now, you would think if someone, like myself, who was just out there selling something, if I was just going out slinging, selling something, you would have to believe that after 16,000 clients, there'd be some negative feedback out there about me, right? Or about the company, the Money Multiplier, or BYOB. Check it out. Go to Reddit. Google my name. Google, any problems with me, any negative things with me. You're not going to find any. And it's not because we've found this amazing way to suppress people's comments. No, but it's because what we teach works. But what we teach only works if our clients apply it, change their mindset around money, and actually follow the process. Again, I can't preface that enough. It is not just buying a specially designed whole life, putting your money in it, and sit back and be like, I'm done. I'm going to be wealthy because I watched this webinar and I put money in a whole life and whoo, I am done. No, but the only thing you've done there is made sure that someday when you graduate and go on to a better place, your family is going to get a windfall of money. Your family is going to be able to continue their lifestyle. Your family is going to have the ability to continue their lifestyle as they did when you were here. And I'm sorry I'm going on a rant, but I got a little bit of time and I'll skip some things because this is so vitally important. I've been doing this 21 years now. It's a long time. It is. And the one thing I will tell you is, yes, we've got 16,000 clients, which means I've helped people, 16,000 plus of them, change their financial futures. But do you know what I remember most? I remember delivering the checks to the families of my clients who have gone on to heaven. Because at that very point, I realized something, and it was a long, long time ago. And let me just tell you a little story. When I first started my career as a financial advisor, I worked for a company called NyLife Securities. It's a subsidiary of New York Life. You've probably heard that company. 51 Madison was our home office. And I remember it was my very first death of a client. And I knew this client very well. They lived out in the ski country, kind of where I visit quite often. It's a town called Springville, really desolate kind of area. And I remember I got the notification that he had passed away. I'd never met his family, didn't know he had kids, didn't know his wife, but I had this check that they sent to me, because to get a death claim, all you do is you just submit a death certificate with a form, and then all of a sudden the insurance company will mail you the check. But back then, the insurance company mailed the agent the check. That was New York Life's policy. I took that check and I made the appointment with the client's wife, I should say. And I didn't tell her what I was coming for. I just said, I have to review, I'm sorry about your loss, but I have to review some financial things that your husband had set up with you. May I come out? And she gladly said yes. We set a time. I got there, tiny little house, kind of run down. I drove down the long dirt driveway, parked my car, knocked on the door, and she opened the door, invited me in, sat down at the kitchen table. I proceeded to tell her, and it was a very simple conversation. And I said, ma'am, I said, while your husband was alive, I know we've never met, but he set something up to make sure that should this day ever come, you, and now I had noticed they had children, you and your children could live and maintain your lifestyle and maybe even live a better life. And in this envelope is a check. And I slid it over to her and she opened it up. And as soon as she looked at the amount on the check, now, folks, this wasn't a huge death benefit. I think it was like maybe 175, I don't remember exactly, about call it $175,000, which by today's standards is not a big death benefit, especially with the policies we design. She burst into tears and I thought something was wrong. Her kids came over, which she had 2 little boys, came over and like, mommy, are you okay? And she said, yes, boys, we will be okay. We are now going to be okay because daddy took care of us. I'm getting emotional because I remember this, and this is just one of hundreds of these checks that I have delivered. But here's what I realized, folks. I realized that this insurance salesman, okay, because let's just call it what it is, this insurance salesman was the only one who had showed up at this woman's house who had just lost her husband of many, many years. I was the only one bringing a check. Everybody else was bringing an invoice. Everybody else was asking for money, money for flowers, money for the funeral home, money for the casket, money for this, money for that, money for this. I was the only one who brought a check. That moment changed me forever. It doesn't matter how much money I can help somebody accumulate. You can't take it with you. But what you can do is make sure that when you're gone, your family, your kids, you can make sure that they're going to be okay. Now, with that being said, folks, I'd love to just dive right into it. This is what we're going to learn. We're going to learn how to become the bank. And when you really think about what you do for a living, right? The late R. Nelson Nash, who wrote a book, Becoming Your Own Banker. That's kind of like where this all started. R. Nelson Nash, back in the 90s, pioneered the infinite banking concepts. I urge all of you to look him up. R. Nelson Nash, he was an amazing human being, very God-fearing man. You can read, just all the parables and everything he says in his book, Becoming Your Own Bank. Or Becoming Your Own Banker. But the one thing that's unique is what he came up with. All he did is took something that was used by the wealthiest families throughout history, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, Ray Kroc, my gosh, I'm forgetting it, Walt Disney, Doris Christopher. You had mentioned presidents. Many presidents and congressmen and women have used this concept. However, you've never heard of it in most cases until just recently. Because R. Nelson Nash, what he did is he took this thing that all these wealthy families were using, and he brought it to all of us. He literally created the system known as the infinite banking concepts. And that's really what we're going to go over today. So becoming your own bank is simple. All it does is it takes one of the two businesses you should be in, says R. Nelson Nash. R. Nelson Nash said this. He said, there are two businesses that you need to be in your life. Number one is the business that pays the bills, which for all of you is different. Some of you are doctors, some of you're nurses, you're firefighters, you work on cars, some of you are entrepreneurs and real estate investors, and there's a wide array of people that are on here. All of you do something that earns you a living that pays your bills. But he went on to say that the second business everyone needs to be in is the banking business. And he said, out of the two, the banking business is the most important. And I can promise you, that is the truth, and that is what you're going to learn. Literally, how to reverse engineer what a bank does every single day, which most of you know, but you're sitting on the wrong side of the coin on that. You are giving them control of your money. They are taking your money, using it to make themselves money, called a spread, and they are doing this over and over, and we have just allowed this to happen because we've never been taught banking, not in high school, not in college, not in grad school. None of you have ever been taught banking in your entire life, which is funny because as R. Nelson Nash says, banking is one of the most important things we all need to learn. Why haven't we been taught that? I think you already all know the answer. They don't want us to know this. This would take control away from the elite. This would take control away from the banks and Wall Street. And indeed, it does, because it puts you in control of the money and it puts you in the place that the bank is today. However, again, it takes time. There is no get rich quick scheme or anything in what you're going to learn today. All right, let's move through this. All right. So a couple things. I always like starting with this. This is just like a cool little graphic, but you'll notice there's one little guy here, one little drawing, and he's got a big smile in red, and it says 5%. I want to congratulate each and every single one of you for being here today because you are the 5%. But if I don't tell you the relevance of what the 5% is, you probably are just like, I don't know what that means. So let me go back to somebody by the name of Earl Nightingale. And if you've never, ever watched The Strangest Secret in the World, please write that down. And today, you're going to hear a lot. It's going to be like drinking from a fire hose with all the speakers. But all I want you to understand is that out of all the speakers, all you need to do is either find one, maybe two things that you can apply in your life. So I just want to add to that. It is about a 25 or 28-minute long video. It's called The Strangest Secret in the World from Earl Nightingale. Some of you, I've noticed that you've read or listened or read this. But in there, in the very beginning, he talks about a study that was done by a doctor. Because Earl Nightingale's biggest thing he could never understand is he grew up very poor, and he could never understand why some people are successful and other people fail. What is the difference between success and failure? In this study, basically went into taking 100 eager, optimistic 25-year-olds and asking them a single solitary question. Are you going to be successful at the age of retirement? So I don't know if any of you on here are around 25 years old, but I know for a fact, if you ask any 25-year-old this, the answer is absolutely. They're so full of life, so positive, so just sure they're going to be billionaires and millionaires and all these things at the time of retirement. However, in this study, they followed statistics from Social Security, and they went on to study these 100 eager, optimistic 25-year-olds at the time of retirement. And here's what happened. This is what the study found. Out of those 100 25-year-olds, only 5 of them were financially secure at the age of retirement. And then to go even step further, only 1 of them was what we would call wealthy. So it started this whole thing with Earl to say, well, how can that be? How in the richest land in the world, the United States of America, the land of the free, the land of opportunity, how can only 5 out of 100 be successful? It went on to find the simplicity in this. And this is why I said you are all the 5%. What they found is that those 5 that were successful, the only thing different that they did than the other 95% is create. This should come as no surprise to any of you. You know, like when you talk about creation and you talk about God and you talk about Jesus and you talk about all these things, it's all creation. Creation. They created their destiny. They created their dreams. They created their financial means. They created their businesses. They never quit. Remember I said that earlier? My blueprint and all my failures, all I did is I just never quit. That's the creation. Now, what did the other 95% do that the 5 did not? This, again, should be no surprise. They conformed. They conformed to other people's failed realities, failed dreams, failed financial plans. Too many people in the world, but I'm just going to pick on the United States of America because that's what we have stats for. Too many folks conform to other people's opinions and other people's ideas. We are born with an innate ability to dream. Our minds are creation, period. We are the only species that can do what we can do because of our minds. Yet so many of us, when we were kids, we did nothing but dream and create, dream and create. Just look at your kids. And then throughout life, what happens? We lose that creativity. We say our dreams are never going to happen. And the only reason we say that is because other people beat us down. Other people tell us we can't. And that is a freaking shame. So all of you, you're here for some reason. You could be doing lots of other things on a Saturday morning. And I have to believe you are all here to create your dreams and your improved financial futures. I promise you, I will help you add that building block to your life and what I'm going to teach you. But some of you don't even know who I am. So let me just take, I don't know, 10 minutes, if it's okay, just explaining who I am. I did not grow up in a family with money. I literally grew up and I was raised by my mom in a small 700 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house where my mom still lives to today. Now, we didn't have means back then, but what my mom always instilled in me was to dream. And as a young child, and I've got lots of YouTube videos on this, so I'm not going to go into the stories, but the one story I will tell you is as a young boy, I got this crazy idea. Now, I live in Buffalo, New York. We get quite a bit of snow here, but we don't have mountains. But I got this idea to become a pro snowboarder. When I told all my friends and I told, the people that I worked with back then, I worked on a farm, they all said I was crazy. You'd have to move. You'd live in Buffalo. That could never happen. They're all trying to get me to conform to their ideologies that just because of our demographics and where we live, I can't become a pro snowboarder. Well, if you follow me, I wasn't willing to accept that. I did what everybody else was unwilling to do. And I didn't have the means to do it on the hill. So you know how I did it? This is where creativity comes in. By my house, there was this country club. It was called the Lockport Country Club. And it was in a ravine. So in the winter, when it snowed, what I would do is, at night, I would watch all these snowboard videos and these magazines I would read. And I would have my mom drop me off after school at this country club. I would bring a shovel and my board, and I would dig in the sand traps that were going down the hill, and I would carve out jumps. And I would run up the hill, and I would hit the jump and practice. Run up, hit the jump and practice until it got dark. Usually, I didn't even notice it was getting dark. I heard beep, beep, which is mom honking the horn. That meant time to go. So I did this over and over and over and over again, and that is how I mastered all the tricks. That is how I got good, because I didn't have the money. Mom didn't have the money to send me to the resorts so that I could learn on the mountains, or the hills, as I would call them. That's just one aspect of my dreaming. Now, that dream did turn into me becoming a pro snowboarder, but also turned into me becoming an entrepreneur at the age of 16. I started a clothing line out of mom's basement. Then it came because I worked for an employer, a job at a restaurant where they degraded me and treated me so poorly that I quit. But I wasn't a quitter, so I came home and I said, Mom, I quit my job, but I've got this idea to create this clothing line called Fat Clothing Company, PHAT, and I want to do this and that. And my mom just said, that sounds amazing, honey. How can I help? And Fat Clothing was born. Not even 2 years after Fat Clothing was born, I got the next idea to open a skateboard, snowboard shop. Because why do a clothing line when you don't have a store to sell it? Called Fat Man Board Shops. Now, this was a really difficult situation for me, because this one involved, for the first time in my life, I needed a chunk of money. And roughly, my business plan, which I wrote with my teachers, I wrote my business plan with my CPA teacher, Mr. Crawley, my business law teacher, and also there was an economics teacher who helped me significantly. We wrote the business plan, which I then took to every single bank. I took to everybody in my family. And you know what they all told me, this punk snowboard kid at the age of 17 years old? No. It was kind of like that movie, Kid, you'll shoot your eye out. And I got told no so many times that I literally started to believe that my idea was stupid and I was going to quit. My mom saw this. And I call my mom my unconditional one. And I should have a photo of her on here, but I have a photo of my wife, so I just ran out of space. But my mom saw this, and my mom said, so what has to happen? And I said, I don't know, Mom. This one bank said that they would give me an SBA-backed loan, but they need collateral. And I told them, Mom, I got a KX 125 dirt bike, a baseball card collection, and my 86 Buick. And they said, no, kid, we kind of need collateral, like a piece of real estate. So my mom paused for a second, just thought about this, and she came back and she just said to me, she said, well, Chris, what if she said, what if we put this house, the house we live in, up for collateral? Do you think that would be sufficient? Now, my mom got the house in the divorce, and the house literally had roughly about $75,000 in equity in it. My mother did the craziest thing. And I don't think any parent should do this, but my mom believed in me. She was probably the only one that did. She put her house on the line so that her punk snowboard kid could chase his dream and open Fat Man Board Shop. November of 1994, I'm dating myself. Fat Man Board Shop opened. It is still open today. What a legacy, right? I sold it in 2010. But let me continue on with this story. So now I'm living my dream. Got my stores. I'm snowboarding professionally, traveling all over the world. I'm literally living my best life. And then all of a sudden, I was driving to my brand new store in Orchard Park, and I heard this on over the radio of a plane hitting a tower in New York City. And then another plane hitting the tower. We all know that was 9/11. And following 9/11 came the dot-com crash. Now, this is the very first recession of my life. But what that recession did is tanked my business 30%. I was literally on the verge of going bankrupt. I couldn't afford anything. So I had to do what every creator, every person that's unwilling to quit would do. I had to get a job. Little Caesars wouldn't hire me. So I put my resume out, which fit on one piece of paper. Punk snowboard kid, didn't have much college in me because I was an entrepreneur, and blah, 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 fit on one page. I started getting calls from Wall Street firms. Now, enter that story I mentioned earlier, New York Life. I interviewed with another financial firm, took the job, hated it, interviewed with New York Life, ended up starting my career as a financial advisor there. Now, this was in early 2000s, right after the dot-com crash. Not exactly a good time to become a financial advisor because people had just lost their butts in the dot-com crash, which was a 3-year-long recession. But that's when I started. And I pivoted. I'd never put a suit on in my life. I pivoted from wearing a toque and a beanie or a hoodie and a toque every single day to now I'm putting a suit on every single day of my life. It was a mental transition, but I ended up liking it. I kept doing that. And it empowered me with my retail stores to put my managers in charge. Instead of working in the business, which I had always done up to this point, now I'm working on the business. Huge thing. If any of you are entrepreneurs, you will have to come to a crossroads in your entrepreneurial journey where you need to stop working in your business and you need to work on your business. My story was forced on me. I had to do this, but some folks don't have to do it, but they must if their business is going to go to the next level. Moving past that. So I made it through that period of time, started making good money in the financial business, doing all these things. I got into real estate in 06, did a flip. 07, did another flip. 08, right before the big crash happened, the Great Recession, I had bought a strip, well, it wasn't a strip mall, it was a dilapidated paint store where I was going to develop it into a strip mall. I was going to borrow money from this group of guys who were not good guys, and I was going to pay them 15% interest, and I was just going to turn this beautiful paint store into a 3-unit strip mall, and I was going to have my tenants pay my mortgage. And then that winter, the Great Recession hit, and it literally rushed me. I wasn't done with the plaza. I got down to I had enough money after exhausting my 401k and everything else to pay one more payment to these hard money sharks. And then it was game over. And I remember coming home late at night one night, and you see that girl in the middle, that's my wife now. We've been together for 16, almost 17 years. We have a little girl who's now 4.5 years old named Vivi, who is my life, my why. But at that point in time, I came home to Larissa, who had just moved into my house, who was just a girlfriend, and I sat her down and I said, sweetie, I need your help. I need your help paying the utilities. I need your help paying the mortgage. And by the way, sweetie, I'm going to move my friend Pete into that bedroom down the hall, and my other friend Jessica is going to move in upstairs. As if I should have just finished that by saying, any questions? Now, any of you women listening to this, you're probably thinking, holy crap, she should have just walked out the door. Well, she didn't. She didn't quit on me. And that's the only way I made it through 2008. By the skin, or how do they say that? The skin on my chinny chin chin. I ended up making it back, getting back on my feet. I sold Fat Man in 2010 just because I couldn't financially bear that. I sold that strip mall in 2014. That seeded more real estate development, more real estate investments. I kept doing real estate, and that kind of gets me pretty close to now. Now, let me finish this story, or let me finish my who I am with a very unique story. It's about 2014. I just sold the strip mall, buying and flipping real estate, and I had met this guy, Mike, very wealthy guy, very, very wealthy family. And I was borrowing money from Mike for my real estate deals. So I happened to be out in Salt Lake City where he lived snowboarding. And I called Mike up and I just said, hey, Mike, I got this deal that I'd like to show you. I'm in your backyard. Is there a chance we might be able to meet? And he says, yeah, let's meet for lunch tomorrow at Cheesecake Factory, which is right downtown Salt Lake. So I met him there. And during the conversation, I'm pitching my deal to him, blah, blah, blah. And I just said to Mike, so Mike, how do you lend all this money? And Mike, without flinching, and really listen to this, Mike said, I lend from my own private bank. Now, right there, folks, like if somebody said, I lend from my own private bank, what would you think? You'd probably think the same thing I did. I thought, holy crap, Mike's got a bank. And I'm like, Mike, like after lunch, like take me over, show me your bank. Maybe I can grab some of those dumb suckers. Joking, but every bank has dumb suckers. Hint, hint. But Mike goes on to say, he says, no, Chris, I don't have a bank. I just mimic what a bank does. I created a private banking system. And I've just kind of egged him on, keep telling me. And Mike said, well, here's what I did. I changed where my money goes first. I don't put my money in banks. I put my money in a different place where I get a guaranteed interest rate. Hang on these words, folks. A guaranteed interest rate on my money. Now, remember, I'm a financial advisor at this point. So in my mind, I'm trying to fit everything Mike's about to tell me in a little square box because I know everything, as most financial advisors think they do. They know everything. So I'm like, okay, guaranteed interest. Then he goes on to say, and I get paid dividends every single year. And then he continues and he says, and the interest and dividends that I earned grow tax-free. So again, I'm trying to articulate all this data he's giving me and saying, okay, what is this? I'm thinking Roth IRA, it's an annuity or maybe CDs, or what could this thing be? Guaranteed tax-free dividends. I don't get dividend. But then he goes on to tell me it's protected against judgments and liens in most states. And his final thing he tells me was really what stumped me. He then tells me, here's how it works, Chris. I take the money from my private bank as a loan, just like you would from a bank. So I take my money and I loan it to you at an interest rate of 15%. And you then pay me interest on that money. And I take the interest you give me and I put it right back in the same place where the money came, which all made sense. I'm kind of in my mind, just like maybe some of you are, I'm drawing a circle. I'm very visual on how I do things. So I'm drawing a circle and I'm thinking, okay, money started over here on the left side of the circle in this thing that guaranteed interest, dividends, tax-free growth, protected against judgments and liens. And then he takes loans from this thing and gives that money to me and then charges me an interest rate. And he says, the difference is when I took the money from that place, this account, my money never left the account. My money stayed in that account, earning uninterrupted compounding interest on a guaranteed interest rate with those dividends, which back then was roughly about 5.7%. So he's making 5.7% on all of the money, even while he took the money out. Remember, he took it out as a loan and gave it to me and charged me 15%. Now, the cost of capital when he took the money from this place, I'll just give this to you now, back then was 4%. So just think about this. He's making 5.7 uninterrupted compounding interest. To take it out, he's paying this account, whatever this private bank is, 4% to use the money. So what is he doing in the middle? 5.7 minus 4, just simple math, right? He's making a spread. Who else makes a spread? Banks. Banks make a spread. You put money in a bank pays you interest on the money, and then they lend that money back out at a higher rate than what they pay you in interest, right? We all understand that to be true. And he said that, but he said, then you give me 15%. So then now he's making money a second time. So literally, Mike said, by doing it this way, I get to make money twice on the same dollar. Think about that. How many of you know a place where you can put your money, and that place where you put your money allows you to use that money, but it allows you to still earn interest and dividends uninterrupted on that money, compounding, while still getting to use it? So you get to save and spend at the same time, but he's making a spread on this money. He's making money twice on the same dollar. I was blown away. And now my mind, because I was a financial advisor, I'm like, holy crap, I just found the holy grail for making money. I just need to learn what Mike did, and I can take this to all my clients, and I'm going to get filthy rich. This is what I thought. And I said to Mike, Mike, you got to show me how to do this. And Mike said, I can't. I learned it from this guy, Brent. I just used this system. And I said, well, darn it, Mike, give me Brent's number, which he did. And Brent has gone on to be one of my best friends. He is my mentor. And Brent would tell you from his own words, I was the student, but now I'm the teacher. So if I may, please, now I would love to go in and teach you what it was that I learned way back when about the infinite banking concepts. Now, some of your journey is going to involve some books. And I just want to preface that I'm not the only one out there teaching this, because Robert Kiyosaki in this book, Second Chance, he talks all about this. How about the big guy, Tony Robbins? We all know who Tony Robbins is. Tony Robbins, in this very book, Money Masters the Game, I think it's section 5.2 or 5.7, he goes on to explain exactly what I'm going to teach you. There's R. Nelson Nash's bank, the late R. Nelson Nash, the pioneer of the infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker. And then I'm happy to, and Christy can kind of give you the links for this, I'm happy to give you my books for free. Me and Brent, that mentor, my best friend right there, wrote Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. That's our modern version of becoming your own banker. And then my very first book I wrote was The Private Money Guide. I've gone on to write 6 books now. One of the books that's coming out is a children's book for my daughter. And then I wrote another book that is a book that I wrote for my daughter. And it's basically telling my daughter my life stories in a third person. So like a father telling bedtime stories to his daughter, but then it goes on and it shows my demise when I go on to heaven and the different things I taught her through these parables. So anyway, those books are all coming, but look at this photo. What I want all of you to do is just look at this. This is a bicycle. Every one of you throughout your lives have learned how to ride a bicycle, correct? I mean, is there anyone on here who doesn't know how to ride a bike? Even if you don't, it's fine. You've got a reason for not learning, but almost everybody on here knows how to ride a bike. Now, that learning process was the same for all of us. Our parents bought us a bike. It had training wheels. They put us on that bike. They taught us that pressure down on the pedals, bike goes forward. Handlebars to the right, bike goes to the right. Handlebars to the left, bike goes to the left. And then eventually we figured that out, and our parents did a cruel thing and took the training wheels off. I bet you all of you crashed. I certainly did. But we didn't quit, because you wouldn't have learned how to ride a bike if you quit. You got back on the bike and you learned how to ride it. Now that we have understood how we learn how to ride a bike, it's the same for all of us. Now, how many of you could ride this bicycle? We'll call this the backward bicycle, but only one thing on this bicycle was changed. Look at that, the little gear there. This bicycle, because of one change, when you turn the handlebars to the right, the bike goes to the left. When you turn the handlebars to the left, the bike goes to the right. It's just backwards from what you've learned. Now, it's exactly the same when it comes to money. Every one of you have learned money works a certain way, and you've been applying that in your entire life. I'm going to show you one change to what you do with your money, and it's going to change everything. And any of you that do decide to go on this journey and do decide to start practicing the infinite banking concept, you will never go back. You will never go back to the way you use money today. I often think about this when it comes to my daughter. My daughter's literally, like, from the time she was born till now, she's been saying, be your own bank, BYOB, and learning by me teaching her with little piggy banks how to be her own bank. She's going to get this. I feel like I've done a disservice for my daughter, because she's going to get to a point in her life where she's literally going to, kind of be with her peers, and she's going to literally not understand why they would do something so stupid with money, like go and take a loan from the bank and pay that bank principal and interest payments when they could just be paying themselves. They could just be the bank. Like, Daddy, why would anyone do that? You're all going to just have to decide, are you ready for this? And I always like to go through this to start, and then we're going to go really fast and get into this. And here are two things you're going to learn today in the time that we have. And there's lots more I could teach you, but I think these are the two most vital stepping stones. You're going to learn the fundamentals of what the infinite banking concept is. Okay. You're going to also learn how to get all of the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. Let me repeat that, because a lot of people are like, that's impossible. No. It's actually just math. You're going to learn how to get all the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. And then the last part is what I'm going to show you, something you're all very familiar because you follow Christy, is I'm going to show you how to literally get rid of debt by just following this process. And it plugs in perfectly with what Christy teaches. But before we can get there, I know all of you are like, let's go, let's go, let's go. I got to understand how smart you folks are, because we got to go through the mysteries of money. So let me do this. And I need you all to participate a little bit. And I'm going to watch this. We got Vicky here to unlearn some things in starting with money. I love that. Have an appointment set for Tuesday morning. Fantastic joy. But let's go into this. The mysteries of money. Now just shoot it in the chat, because I'm going to stare at the chat as I do this. What is the definition of money? Who can tell me what the definition of money is? And Christy, I don't know if there's a way I can give any of these folks to get these questions right, something, because I'd love to, but, let's just try to, if somebody on the other end, maybe Christy or someone on the team could maybe just write down the person that gets it right. Hold on, right here, we got it. Terry nailed it. Money is nothing more than a means of exchange, right there. Terry Greco, median of exchange. That is all money is. It's just a means of exchange. Money for food, food for money, money for house, house for money, money for car, car for money. We just use money to exchange for things. And it doesn't matter what the money looks like. It could be like, the currency in Canada. It's like paper, fake money, or it could be our greenbacks. It could be change. It could be dollars that are in gold coins. It's just a means of exchange. Great job, everybody. A lot of you got that right. Now the questions are going to get a little bit harder. Okay. So now this one definitely deserves a prize if somebody can get it. What company in the world uses compound interest? Go. What company in the world uses compound interest? Government, banks, government, banks. None. Oh, whoa, holy cow. And I don't want to say your name wrong here, but Keisha, did I get that right, Keisha? I swear I do this talk all over the country, And I can't even count on one finger the amount of people that have gotten this question right. Keisha, you nailed it. And now everybody look at her question. Look at her answer. None. Absolutely correct. There's not a company in the world that uses compound interest except we are the only ones that have been taught to use compound interest. And let me define that. Let me explain. Most people said banks, which is the most common answer I get. The government came up a bunch, but banks. Okay. And please, I need to give Keisha something. So Christy, if you have her address or something, like after, maybe text it to me and I'll mail you something, Keisha. I got something. I'll mail you. Banks is what most people said. Banks do not use compound interest. Banks pay you compound interest. Banks charge you compound interest, but they do not use compound interest. And I'll prove it right now. When you go into a bank and you give the bank your money, your deposit, what does the bank do with your money? Does the bank take your money, put it in a little box and put it in the vault with your name on it? No. The bank takes your money and immediately loans your money back out in those little cubicles. Banks move money. continuously and forever. They always have money in a state of movement, which means in order to earn compound interest, what must money do as far as how most of you view money? Your money must go somewhere and sit there. You put it into a CD. In order for that money to compound, that money's got to sit in a CD. You put it in a high yield savings. That money's got to sit there and grow. You put it in a 401k. That money's got to sit there. You can't just take that money out and still earn compounding interest. So businesses, banks don't use compound interest. Car dealerships don't use compound interest. Otherwise, you'd see the same car on the lot from 1977. Because that car would just have to sit there. But it doesn't. They move cars off the lot over and over. They move parts out of the merchandise place. Grocery stores are another one. Grocery stores move inventory. Every business in the world is in the business of moving money through exchange. That's how it works. The entire productivity curve, when you follow economics, is movement of money. It's interesting, huh? So many of you said banks. A lot of people say insurance companies, government. None of them. They all move money. All right, great job. This one's easy. Are your dollars worth more now or in the future? Now or in the future? Absolutely correct. Now, back 10 years ago, people used to say in the future, but no. How many candy bars could you have bought 20 years ago for $1? The answer is more than today. Because of inflation, your dollars today are the most valuable dollars you will ever have. Just sear that into your mind. Your dollars that you have today will never, ever be worth more than they are today in the future. It's impossible. As the government, or not the government, but the Fed determines monetary policy and issues, the Treasury to print more money, every dollar they print weakens your current dollars and all the current dollars in circulation. It's called inflation. We just think of it as price of goods go up. That's wrong. That is not inflation. Inflation is not the price of goods going up. The inflation really is your dollars buy less. Because the value of your dollars as they print more diminishes. Therefore, it takes more dollars to buy the same goods and services, which to us from the surface value comes through as an increase in cost. Hopefully, you'll learn some useless knowledge there. But your dollars are worth the most today. Taxes. This is an interesting time to ask this question, seeing as though Donald Trump is about to take office, and he did say he's going to either reduce taxes in some, but let's be real. Will your taxes go up or down in the future? I love what Rich and Jana said. Up. Always go up. Now, I know presidents make a difference, and all these things with how much it goes up, but just in the sheer nature of it, taxes go up. And I'm going to make a promise to all of you on something. Your taxes will go up in the future because I know you're part of the 5%, which means I know you're going to create, which means I know you're going to make more money in the future. The more money you make, the more taxes you pay. Your tax rate will go up no matter who's in office. Okay? Good job. All right, let's go over here. I'm going to skip down to this last one. What do you know about your retirement account? How many of you have a 401k, 403b, 457? And what do you know about it? Hold on. Let me tell you what most people know. They know whether they're invested in conservative, moderate, or risky investments. And maybe they know if they get a match. That's about all most people know about their 401ks. But let's just go through everything we just learned about the mysteries of money, and let's talk about how that relates to your 401k. Now, if I were to ask your entire audience, and I want to keep going with this, if I were to ask all of you why you bought or put money into your 401k, the answers will be it would be a resounding similarity between all the answers. And it will be because I was told to. Okay. Just like me, my grandmother said, when I get a job, make sure you ask if they have a 401k and then ask if they have a match. And that was seared in my mind. Okay, great. 401ks must be good because I get free money in a match and I got to retire someday. So we were told to do it. Secondarily, some people will put money in a 401k because they get a tax deduction. Right? When you put the money in, it goes in pre-tax. So you don't pay tax on the money going in the 401k, or do you? I think you should know the answer now. And the last thing is the match. And that is a very justifiable reason to put money into a 401k up to only the max amount you get matched, which in most cases is between 3 and 4% because of safe harbor laws. Now, let's go back through and let's think about how silly this is. And the founder of the 501k, Ted Bennett, you can read his book, 501k, says that 401ks are like one of the worst places you can put your money, but yet he's the one that founded it. The government took it and turned it into something he didn't want. And in his book, 501k, eloquently describes why 401ks are not garbage, but just not a great place to put your money. But let's go back into what we just learned, okay? What company in the world uses compound interest? None, except for we put money in 401ks and retirement accounts to earn compound interest. But secondarily, we put dollars in that are worth the most today to take them out sometime in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when our dollars are certainly going to be worth less. We literally take our best dollars, our most valuable dollars, and put them in a place where they're going to sit for 5, 10, 15 years, and 100% are going to be worth less when we take them out. And we do that because of the hope of that money growing in the markets. But also we do that to get a tax deduction. But wait a second, we're putting our money in the 401k today to get a tax deduction at today's tax rates when we all of you agreed that you're going to pay higher taxes sometime in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So let me get this straight. You're taking your best dollars that are worth the most today and putting them somewhere and locking them up for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We're taking dollars today and putting them into a vehicle to get a tax deduction today. And knowingly, we're going to take that money out later when the dollars are worth less, but we're going to pay higher taxes on the dollars when we take them out, because all 401ks, with the exception of Ross, are going to have taxes on 100% of the money you take out. We have literally been taught to do things with money we would never do with things that money buys. Would you ever go out and buy a loaf of bread? Beautiful Italian loaf of bread, if any of you like bread. Come home, put it in the freezer, shut the freezer door, and then wait 5, 10, 15 years, and then come back to that freezer, open the freezer door, take that loaf of bread out, and look at it and go, it's going to be good. That is going to be a freezer burned lump of something you would never eat. But wait, there's not just one loaf in there that's freezer burned. There's now two, because you got a match. You would never go buy your dream car, and then right when you buy it and you're ready to drive it off the lot, you get in it and you say, oh, hold on a second, hold on. I can't drive this car today. I got to wait. I got to treat this car the same way I treat my money and wait 5, 10, 15 years before I drive this car. And you would never buy your dream house with your significant other. And then when you get to the front door, look at your significant other and say, honey, sweetie, I'm sorry, we can't move in right now. We got to treat this house purchase the same way we treat our money. We got to wait 5, 10, 15 years. I know that's so silly, but listen, I'm just trying to get you to see what's really going on out there. I was a financial advisor at a high level for 16 years. I know what went on in there. And believe me, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. And we've got to break the chains of financial slavery that we are in because of what we're told to do with money. And that's what we're going to do now. Now, I got to break down mathematics for you. And I'm going to just do this. A lot of times I skip it, but this is fun. Is anyone in here buying a car in 2025? Do we got any people buying a car? Anyone? Tina, you buying a car this year? Howard? Okay, Donna, can you play along with me a little bit? All right, Donna's going to buy a car. So Donna, I just want you to think, if you were going to buy a car, how many different ways are there to buy a car? And everybody can chime in. I'm just going to pick on Donna the whole time. So name the different ways you can buy a car. I'll start you off. You can buy a car by paying cash for a car, right? How else could you buy a car, folks? You could finance the car, Howard said, right? You could go to a bank or a finance company and take out a loan and make principal and interest payments for that car. Yep. How else? Let's see. Evelyn, what do you got there? You could lease. Oh, I love that, Corey. John said you could lease a car. Right. Yeah, you could lease a car where you make payments of principal and interest for a car, and then 3 years or 5 years later, you just give them the car back. That's when you really think about leasing, it's pretty freaking stupid what we do. And then I can't remember who said that up there. Corey said the fourth and final way, you could steal a car. Now, please don't steal a car because you'll end up going to jail, but it is a viable way to get a car. So Donna, now that we've outlined the 4 ways to buy a car, well, we got to kind of talk about the first way. If you're going to pay cash for a car, you'd have to save up money in an account that then could be used to buy a car. So Donna, this is your savings account, okay? You're going to buy a $25,000 car and you want to pay cash. So you have been saving up the money in a really good bank that paid you 4% interest on your money. Now, this was more impactful back when interest rates were really low, but now some of you are actually getting 4% in a bank, so kudos and good for you. But Donna, you got your money sitting in a bank earning 4%, and you walk into the bank because you found a beautiful car you want to buy and you need the $25,000 that's sitting in that bank to pay for the car. And I'm going to play your banker today, okay, Donna? So banker Chris. You walk in and you see me and you say, hey, banker Chris, how things going? A little bit of small chat. And you say, hey, banker Chris, I got to take that $25,000 that I've been saving out of this really good bank that's paying me 4% because I found a car that I want to buy. And I want to pay cash for the car because I don't want payments. And banker Chris looks at you and says, that's awesome. Congratulations on saving up the money to pay cash for a car. But how about this, Donna? How about our bank makes you a loan for that car? And our bank will charge you 6%, and we can do any term, but for 60 months, okay, we'll give you a loan for $25,000 from our bank, and you're going to have to pay us 6% interest on that loan for 60 months. But then, Donna, your money can stay in this bank account earning 4%. Donna, did I just make a good deal to you? Is that a good deal? We're going to charge you 6 at the bank, and we're going to pay you 4. Is that a good deal? You liking that, Donna? Like by the math? No. Okay. Kathy came out and said no before Donna even got into it. Valerie's like, heck no. Right. Because you're making 4% on your 25 grand, but yet we're going to charge you 6%. But then let me throw a little hook into this. Me, the banker Chris, goes to you and says, Donna, I'm going to make you a guarantee today. I guarantee if you borrow from this bank at 6% over 60 months, you will make more money on your $25,000 in that account earning 4%. And I will put that in writing and guarantee it. Am I lying to Donna? Folks, am I lying to Donna? Of course I am, right? That's idiotic. Jana's like, duh, I can do math. 6 minus 4 is what? -2. Donna's losing 2% in this transaction. But hold on, I just said I would put it in writing. I would guarantee it on bank letterhead that the bank is going to pay you more money on your $25,000 earning 4%, even though we issue you a loan at 6% for the same exact dollar amount. Yeah, see, some of you are like, duh. This is where we have to learn math. And I'm not saying any of you don't know how to do math, but this is where math really can get tricky. But it's not just math, it's how the money is working. Let's just do the math here. $25,000 for that 6% loan works out to be $483.32 per month. Multiply that times 60 months. Donna will end up paying $28,999 for that car. So $25,000 was the purchase price of the car. The rest is interest paid to the bank. Everybody with me? And anyone that wants to do the math with this, feel free. I've never, ever had somebody challenge me and not, agree that this is correct. Now, here's the second part of the equation. Remember, the banker said, I guarantee you will make more money on that $25,000 earning 4% over the exact same time frame. And it doesn't matter if it's 60 months, 30 months, 72 months. The time frame is irrelevant. We're just using 60 and 60 months. Fair enough? Well, if you did the math in a compound interest calculator, you would find that 25,000 over 60 months, just earning 4% interest every year, grows to $30,525. Now, please correct me, but unless we do math differently here in Buffalo, New York, that means that you made $1,526 more because the banker was right. Let me just pause. Can anyone tell me why this is how the math plays out? It's actually quite simple, but we're just not trained to think like this, which is, again, why I actually should just call this part of that mysteries of money, because it's very simple. The 25,000 was earning 4%, but it was compounding over that 60 months. So therefore, after year one, it wasn't 25,000 earning 4%. It was 25,000 plus the 4% interest earning 4%. And every year that happened. You've all heard the story of the penny doubling every day for 30 days. Do you want $1 million? Do you want a penny doubled every day for 30 days? And we all know the answer. Like, the penny doubled doesn't really beat the $1 million until like the final couple days, but then it ends up being about $5.3 million. It's compounding interest. And the other thing that you're not factoring, and this is vitally important, and this is a lot of people don't get this. So we can agree that the 25,000 at 4% is going up. It's earning. The 25,000 at 6% is being paid down. So the balance is going down. So therefore, every year when the bank charges the 6%, they're not charging 6% on 25 grand. They're charging 6% on 25,000 minus all the payments of principal you made toward the car. So therefore, this is the math. This is how it works. We're going to come back to this later, but I get everybody when I do this. Uninterrupted compounding interest. We're going to cover that. So let's keep going. The first thing we got to do is, in order for this whole system to work, and we're going to call this the money multiplier method because that's the name of our company, the money multiplier, and then BYOB is what we do, be your own bank. Okay? We need a machine. In order for you to become your own bank, you simply cannot leave your money in a bank account, because a bank is designed by its nature to be in the business of banking. And if we're going to be in the business of banking, well, there's a conflict of interest. We can't use a bank to be the bank. We have to find a different machine, like Mike earlier, of where we can store our wealth. So we need a machine to, and I want you to understand this, we need a machine to run our money through. We do not need a machine to put our money in and leave it sit, because we already know there's not a business in the world that leaves its money sitting. They move money, and you need to be moving your money too. So we just need a machine to run our money through. Okay. Second thing, I already hit earlier, but I'm going to hit it again. We have to understand that what we're about to embark on, the business of building wealth, okay, because essentially that's what we're doing. I'm showing you how to build wealth. It's a marathon, just like life. None of you, at least I hope none of you, are sprinting through life. You're stopping and smelling the roses. You're enjoying it. You're enjoying the journey, good, bad, or indifferent. You're learning from it. Building wealth is a journey. It is a marathon. So nothing I'm telling you right here is going to happen overnight. And that's the bad news. Okay. It's the worst news, but it's the best part of it. And lastly, in order for me to help all of you, you must have a goal. You must have a goal. Your goal could be, hey, Chris, I just want to be wealthy. Well, define wealth to me. What is wealthy to you? Because it's probably different than wealthy to me. Define that. Some of you might just say, hey, I just want to buy a new car. Some of you might say, I want to be out of debt. Some of you might have something else. Doesn't matter. I want to buy a boat, a plane, anything. You need a goal. So for this, the final part of the money multiplier method is, I just put the millionaire. You want to become a millionaire. You want to become wealthy. All right. Let's go through those three main topics, and let's do them in order. First, I talked about we need a machine. Now, the cat's kind of already out of the bag because we talked about it earlier, so I'm just going to get right out of the way. The machine in which we're going to use for this process of becoming your own bank is nothing more than a dividend paying, remember Mike said, I get dividends, whole life insurance policy issued from a mutually owned life insurance company. Keyword mutually owned. And other keyword, whole life insurance. You notice I did not say IUL. I did not say index universal life. I'm not saying that product is a bad product, but that product simply cannot work for what I'm going to teach you because of the way that it is internally functioning. Only a whole life insurance policy designed and engineered, preface, not a normal whole life that you would buy from your broke ass brother-in-law. I'm talking about a whole life insurance policy that from a contractual standpoint is designed and engineered to do what I'm about to show you. It is not a normal whole life. And it must be from a mutually owned company. And it must be from a mutually owned company that likes the infinite banking concept. Not all insurance companies subscribe to this. Like Northwestern Mutual, you've heard of them. Great insurance company, one of the best. They simply don't love the infinite banking concept. Why? Because, well, they don't want you taking your money out. They want to keep all their money. Okay. But here's the other thing. Remember I mentioned banks. Well, some of you have a misconceived notion about whole life, but it's not a misconceived notion. It's actually a true notion. You have been taught your whole life that whole life, and I want to hear this from the audience, whole life is probably the worst place you can put your money, says Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and all the other gurus, right? True or true? How many of you have heard that somewhere, somehow? That whole life is one of the worst places you can put your money. It's overpriced, high commissions, and all that. See, look at this. So I'm speaking your language, right? You're all thinking I'm crazy telling you to put your money into a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy because what you've been taught your whole life about money is that whole life is the worst place you can put your money. Now, I'm not saying that isn't entirely false. If you put your money into a regular off-the-shelf whole life insurance policy sold by your broke-ass brother-in-law or whoever, okay, you probably cannot accomplish, actually, I shouldn't say probably, you more than likely will not be able to accomplish the set objectives we're going to go over next, which is you becoming your own bank. So that's not entirely wrong. And regular whole life insurance does have a high commission for the agent and does not have liquidity of your money for at least 2 to 3 years. How many of you want to put your money in a place where you can't get your money for 2 to 3 years? None of you. And just so all of you know, IULs have an increasing cost of insurance. They have surrender charges. So therefore, just by the sheer nature of how they're designed, they cannot function to give you immediate liquidity of your money the way a specially designed and engineered whole life can. Now, let me give you one other little thing. When we design and engineer these whole life insurance policies to work for the infinite banking concept, it also results in us, let's say we do your policy for you, in us receiving a reduction of our commission of up to 90%. Let me preface that. Remember, we always have heard that whole life pays high commissions, which regular whole life does. IULs pay much higher commissions, but whole life does pay a high commission, a regular whole life. The way we design and engineer these reduces our commission by between 60 and 90%. How many of you like that? We make less, you get more. This is just the age-old universal law of if you give, you get. We have to give in the form of designing it to pay us less so that you get in the form of you have immediate access and liquidity of your cash value in the first 30 days. There is no secrets, folks. This is not some magic hocus pocus thing. It is just somebody's got to give so somebody else gets. Now, you know who else knows this? Well, probably the person that knows what you're going to learn about whole life insurance would be the number one purchasers of this, right? Who can tell me who the number one purchasers of whole life insurance in the world are? Who's the number one purchaser of whole life insurance? Gianna got it. Banks. Banks. Banks 100% are the number one purchasers of whole life insurance in the world. They do not buy IUL. And I'm sorry, I keep beating up on this, but there's a reason for it. Banks are not out there buying IULs. Not one IUL policy. Banks are gobbling up whole life insurance, but they don't call it whole life insurance. They call it BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. Now, I'm the kind of person that loves to substantiate anything that I say with factual proof. I love to fact check myself because I don't ever want to get caught in a situation where somebody watches this presentation is like, he's wrong, and then they sue me and they win. So let me just prove that right here. You have all heard of FDIC. So go to fdic.gov. This is really old, and I have to update this slide. Maybe I'll get Christy to keep reminding me because this is as of 2021. But as of 2021, according to fdic.gov, if you type in BOLI in there, you will find something similar. These are the top 5 banks, just the top 5 in this country. The top 5 banks in this country own $75,808,415,000 worth of BOLI as of 2021. The new number is over 100 billion. Okay, just if you can look that up on FDIC. I already did it. I just haven't updated it. Why in the heck would banks be putting $75+ billion of their most valuable dollars, which are called Tier 1 capital, in whole life insurance? Are they stupid, or do they know something you don't know? I can guarantee you they know something you don't know, which is exactly why you have to be careful on what you perceive as the truth about money and what you believe about the truth about how money really works. And again, I just showed you the math. Now I'm showing you something that should kind of open all of your eyes of like, banks are buying this, but banks are institutions. So how do banks buy this? I'm just going to take a second because this is important and I'll miss it if I don't get it out right now. Banks are an institution, a corporation. They cannot buy whole life or BOLI. They just can't without a body to insure. There's always got to be an insurable body. So the next time you walk into a bank, remember this. Why are there so many vice presidents at banks? I mean, there's a vice president of everything, vice president of tellers, vice president of lending, vice president of coffee making, vice president of janitorial. I'm joking, but there's so many vice presidents in banks and nobody ever really says, well, why is everybody a vice president? Well, I'll give you the reason why. Banks, by law and by regulation, have to put at least roughly about 10% of all of our deposits in Tier 1 capital, which is guaranteed sources like treasury bills, treasury bonds, and which you all heard about how that happened back when, Signature Bank and all those other banks went defunct. It's because they owned a bunch of treasuries, but also BOLI, because BOLI is one of the few places banks can put money that has a guarantee on it. So in order for a bank to take out a BOLI policy, they have to have an insurable interest in one of their employees. They don't have an insurable interest in a teller, but they have an insurable interest in an executive of the bank called the vice president. So what the bank does is promotes people very quickly into being a vice president. They give them a small raise. They promise them a deferred compensation program and a fully paid up life insurance policy. True or true? If we have any vice presidents on here, and this isn't just banks, this is any large corporation, but just we'll focus on banks for now. If you work for a bank and you're a vice president, you're like, yep, I got a deferred comp. Yep, I didn't have one prior to being a vice president. And yeah, I did. I got a fully paid up life insurance policy, which is $50,000 to $250,000. Why? Well, because when the bank takes our money, because Tier 1 capital is our money, and buys a bully policy on that vice president, they have to have an exchange. They have to give that employee something of value to basically make it so that the bank can own a policy on their life. So that thing of value is a fully paid up life insurance policy. Now, let me ask all of you this. Do you think that when the bank takes a policy out on the employee, and let's say they promise that employee a $100,000 paid up life insurance policy, do you think that's all the death benefit there is on that policy? No. Most of those policies are millions of dollars in death benefit, because what the bank's going to do is fund that money using our deposits, okay, fund those premiums. And then that employee someday, and banks know this because they're corporations that outlive us, they know someday that employee is going to die. And when that employee dies, the insurance policy will pay a death benefit to that employee's family, as we've talked about earlier. But also they know that because the bank was the owner and also the payor, the bank is also the beneficiary. So who gets the remaining amount of that death benefit? The bank does. And what does the bank do with that? Well, they use it to repay all the premiums and then some and then some and then some that they put into that policy, then allowing them to do more and more and more of this. You see, folks, this stuff isn't complicated. Again, I told you, I didn't come up with this. All this system, bringing it into the family, was really pioneered by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. You can study that. The Rockefellers are very transparent about the Rockefeller family banking system, which is 100% funded using whole life insurance on all the family members of the Rockefeller family. Love or hate what the Rockefellers stand for because of oil and pharmaceuticals and all that. Just take all that bad stuff away and just focus on why are they still one of the wealthiest families in the world? Well, it's because every time one of them passes away, a death benefit is paid into the family banking system's trust, which then makes them wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And they leak no money because their family banking system funds all their business operations, funds all their cars, funds all the purchases of the homes. And then the family members make payments on those cars and houses and boats and yachts and businesses back to their family banking system, because why would you pay someone else's bank when you can just pay your bank and have all the money available to you the next day? Think about it. Is this starting to make a little bit of sense as to why folks and why the wealthiest families throughout history have used what you're learning? It makes all the sense in the world. You take back control of your money. You earn the spread instead of the bank earning the spread. You then never leak any money. But let me show you how that works. And let's just move on. Cars. You remember those cars that we talked about with Donna earlier? That $25,000 car that she found a really good bank. Remember that really good bank was paying her 4%? Folks, that wasn't a bank. I just called it a bank. That was a giant mutually owned insurance company. But the math would have been the same in a bank. But I'm just telling you, you're not going to find a bank that can pay you 4% continuously, because banks, when they drop interest rates, guess what your bank account does? Drops. Many of you have seen this happen. Every time the Fed drops interest rates, and you hear about it in the news, what's happening to your bank account's interest rate? It's going down. But insurance companies contractually guarantee you an interest rate. And that interest rate never, ever changes. So therefore, that example I gave about Donna's bank wasn't a bank at all. It was a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy. So now let's keep going on. Let's talk about how do banks work. In order for you to be the bank, you must understand how banks work. Okay. And folks, as we kind of get going through this, what we're going to do is, Christy's going to put a link in the chat. So if any of you want to book a call with us, you are more than welcome to book a call with my money mentors and my team. And here's my promise to you. We're not going to try to sell you anything, because I hate it when people say, oh, book a call with us, and then all of a sudden I'm on a call and someone's trying to sell me something. Here's instead how my money mentors are trained. They are trained to solve your problem. Every one of you has a different problem. On that call, we're going to identify what your problem is. We're then going to identify, can the infinite banking concepts in this system, this process, solve your problem? If it can't, we are going to tell you this isn't going to work for you. And for many other reasons. See, my mentors know how to determine who is not our client so that we understand who our client is. And I'm not saying all of you are going to be a fit for this. This isn't a one-stop shop. This isn't the one thing that changes everybody's life. Some people, this is just not going to be a fit, but for some of you it is. And if it is a fit on that call, we are going to show you how this system will solve your problem. And then you know what's going to happen? You're going to ask us to help you solve that problem. That's the exchange. That's how the sales process should work for almost anything. Like if we can solve your problem, well, then you'll ask to buy that specially designed and engineered whole life. And you'll ask us to set up that infinite banking system, which I'm about to show you. But But here's how it all functions, just like a bank. So let me teach you how banks work. You all know this, but this is pretty interesting to watch this. And I'm going to drop a real bomb on you at the end of this little presentation on this slide on something that you don't know. Okay. So we all have been taught to make money and deposit it in the bank. And the bank, let's just pretend your bank pays you 4%. But we now know banks don't leave the money sitting in a vault. They don't leave the money sitting there earning compound interest. The banks move that money. So they immediately would take the liability, which is your deposit, because that's not their money and they owe it back to you. That's a liability to the bank. They will immediately flip that liability into an asset, as Robert Kiyosaki talks about all the time, turn liabilities into assets. And they do that by lending that money back out to somebody that wants to buy a house. And we'll go through many examples because lots of different loans. But they charge that person that wants to buy a house 7% on that mortgage. When the mortgage is done and that thing's closed, the buyer gets the money and does what with the money? What they've always been told to do, put it back in the bank, creating a liability for the bank. Bank flips it around, lends that money to somebody else on a car. Now, a car is on wheels, therefore it's moving. So it's a higher risk for the bank than a house because a house doesn't move. So the bank will lend on a car at a higher rate than on a house. So let's just call that 8%. Bank gives the car loan to the dealership. Dealership gives the car to the buyer. Dealership takes the money, puts it back in the bank. Round and round we go. Bank moves that money back out to someone that wants to remodel their kitchen, and they give them a home remodeling loan or a home equity line of credit. Okay. They pay the contractors. The contractors do what with the money? The same thing we all do, put it back in the bank. Then the bank turns it around and lends it out for somebody that needs to pay off their debt. And they do one of those stupid debt consolidation loans. And I'm serious, like most debt consolidation loans out there are awful, but they do that. They charge 12%. The credit cards get paid off. The credit cards do what with the money? Put it back in the bank. Round and round we go. But notice how every single time I put something else up on the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll notice that the bank was making a spread. The bank paid you 4, and then the bank charged 7 on that mortgage. They made 3%. That was a spread. Okay, for moving money, they make that spread. And then for the car loan, they made 4%. Then for the remodel loan, they made 5%. And then for that debt consolidation loan, they made a whopping 8% spread. Total that up, the bank made 20, you made 4. How much more, this is a question, how much more did the bank make than you in the form of a percentage? Math is right on the screen. Who can tell me how much more the bank made than you? Put it in the chat. Okay, I love that. Cindy said 8 or 16%. Patricia said 20. Hold on. Let me stop. Tina said 5 times more. But Tina, what is 5 times more? How much would that be in a percentage? Because you're right. It's 5 times more. Let me kind of put this up on the screen, but I want to explain this. The bank made 5 times more than you did, which is 500% more than you did. Some of you said 16, and how you did that is you took the 20 the bank made, you subtracted the 4 that you're making, but you see, I already did that. I already subtracted the 4, so that's not right. Some of you said 20 just because I put 20 on the screen. And, some of you that said 500 or said 5 times more, you were right. You divided the 4% you're earning into the 20% the bank earned net. That's 500% more than you did. Now, again, remember I said I like to prove things? There you go. BauerFinancial.com. I mean, I could just tell you, hey, all banks make 500% more than you do on the money you leave there. But you know what? Let's let the statistics show that. BauerFinancial.com, if you go there, you can type in any bank, including your bank, and you can type in any time frame. You will find that there's not a bank out there that makes less than 400 to 1,300% more than you do on the money you leave there. Again, remember back to R. Nelson Nash. What business do you want to be in now? The banking business, of course. Duh, right? So in order to be in the bank, yeah, I love it. Priscilla said, dang. But you see, like, this stuff's been in front of all of you. Like, I'm just bringing it to light. I'm literally just showing you the same thing, that he did in that backward bicycle video. I'm showing you something that's been in front of you the whole time. This is not new information. This isn't revolutionary. It's literally just somebody articulating what's really going on out there that nobody wants you to know and bringing it to light. But now I'm going to really show you something they don't want you to know, and that is how to get all the money back for every car you buy, drive, and own. And just so you know, that her name on the screen there, that's Eleanor. I do not own her. I can't afford her yet, but from Gone in 60 Seconds, yeah, that's Eleanor, GT 500. Beautiful car right there. But I would change the way I looked at Eleanor and buying Eleanor. I'm a Porsche guy, and I'm not bragging. I literally dreamt about owning a Porsche since I was a child. I had the poster on my wall. Now that car sits in the studio right here. But that didn't come easy. And that didn't come until I learned how to be the bank, because I learned how to get all the money back for every car I buy, drive, and own, including the Porsches. So why would it matter that I buy a Porsche when I'm going to get all the money back? Well, same thing. The way you buy cars, if you do this, you will never, ever look at buying a car the same way ever again. But again, let's just hit the beginnings. We got to overcome a couple verbal abuses that people will do when they think about becoming their own bank and using a specially designed whole life. First off, premium, that swear word. When I say the word premium, just inherently in your mind is bad, icky, terrible. You hate making your car insurance premium. You hate making your homeowner premium. You hate premiums, but you love making deposits in your bank. So when we're building our own banking system, which is what I'm showing you how to do, we are going to make premium deposits, compliance reasons, I have to say premiums. We are going to be making premium deposits into a specially designed and engineered whole life. But you see how different that is? If I say you're going to make premiums in, you're all thinking about that. Okay, so I have to make payments to an insurance company. I don't want to do that. But when I say you're going to make premium deposits, your mind says, oh, I'm going to make deposits into an insurance company. Well, I like that. Yeah. And the insurance company is going to pay me guaranteed interest plus dividends because they're mutually owned. And the dividends and interest are going to grow tax free. Yeah, I'm into that. See how simple that was? Just a simple frame up and how we think about things. Your mind can only do what you tell your mind to do. That's what it's programmed to do. Your mind can be tricked. And you're not even tricking it. You're being honest. You're making premium deposits. Secondarily, age. This is another one. Kind of a misconception, but not. When we think of life insurance, we think the older we are, the more we can't do this. I get people all the time after I do this. They're like, I'm too old. I'm 60 and I'm too old. I'm 62, I'm too old. Absolutely not. The majority of those 16,000 plus clients are in their 60s. So you're definitely not too old. But that's because we're designing and engineering this differently. We are literally going to design these policies with the lowest death benefit. And I know that's bad. We're putting the lowest death benefit on the policy possible by IRS rules called the MAX 7 payroll. And then we're shoving as much money into it in premium deposits. So therefore, it performs and works more like a bank account than it does like an insurance policy, like a regular whole life insurance. We literally design and engineer them backwards. We don't design them to buy a death benefit. We design them to hold a specific amount of premium deposits, whatever dollar amount you want to put into your banking system. And that's going to be different for everybody. And how you're going to determine how much money you would put into your system is not because of the numbers I put on the screen next. The way you determine it is look at how much money are you saving now and change one thing. And that is where your savings goes first. Notice how I didn't say where your savings goes forever. I said where your savings goes first. And then we're going to move your savings out to do the things that you want done. Money in motion. Age in this scenario doesn't matter until you're over 72 years old. Now, over 72 years old, or if you have health conditions, yes, you can't be the insured. Revert back to what I said about the banks. The banks can't buy insurance unless they have an insurable body, right? And that insurable body has to be an insurable body. So if you are not in good health, if you are over 70, let's just use 70 years old, over 70 years old, it would diminish the efficiency of the policy. So therefore, find a body to insure, and then you become the owner. You own and control the policy's cash value, which is what you want, because that's what we're learning here. But you don't need to be the insured. It could be a child. Okay, it could be a spouse. It could be an executive in your company. It could be a business partner in your company. I have all sorts of different ways you could do it. So again, it doesn't matter if I take a 30-year-old or a 60-year-old and I put the same dollars into the same specially designed whole life. The cash value is going to be the same. What's going to be the difference? Well, the 30-year-old is going to have way more death benefit than the 60-year-old. That's going to be the difference. Fair enough? And lastly, I already hit that, the death benefit. We're going to build this policy, and I want to be very clear about this. We're going to build this policy with the lowest death benefit. So please don't, set up a call with us, to talk about, well, hey, I want the most amount of death benefit I can buy. We're just not the people that you would call for that. We're the people helping you set up a private banking system and implementing the infinite banking concept. We're not the ones that you would call because you want the most amount of death benefit. We're going to build the policy not around the death benefit. We're going to build the policy around the amount of deposits. Look on the screen. This is just an example we're going to go over in a second, but $10,000 per year. Somebody's putting in premium deposits for 10 grand. Look at that death benefit. 680,939. Does anyone think that's kind of a weird number? People, when they buy life insurance, they call their agent or their advisor and they say, hey, what would $500,000 of death benefit cost? Right? That's because you're buying life insurance and paying a premium expense to buy the life insurance. We're building a banking system, and we're building it to be as efficient as possible. We want the lowest death benefit on, and we want to use term insurance in most cases to supplement that death benefit, because term is simply cheaper than buying whole life. So what we use is term riders, hence reducing our commissions significantly. Somebody asked earlier, why would anyone want to give up their commission? Well, it's not whether we want to or not. It's just the only way it works. And many agents and financial advisors will not want to do what we do because they have a limited mindset and a very I'm gonna be nice, so I'm not gonna say that, but they just don't want to give their commission up. So they'll say they can do what I'm telling you to do. They'll say they can do what we're doing, but they don't want to give up their commission. So therefore, they're not going to design the policy right, which means it's not going to work the way I'm about to show you. Sorry, I'm going long in this. 55, you're spring chicken when it comes to this. My goodness. 64, spring chicken when it comes to this. I'm telling you, like the majority of our clients, Christy knows many of our clients are between 50s and 60s. Why? Because those are your peak earning years. Those are where you're making the most amount of money. That's where this really works. Now, we have clients that are 18, 19 years old, and they're putting in 200, 300 bucks a month like that. They're saving this way. But the majority of our clients are probably between mid 40s and late 60s. That's just who we serve. Okay. We have a more affluent client base, and that's just who typically loves the system. Now, that doesn't mean somebody that's just getting by and just saving a little bit of money can't do this. As Christy mentioned earlier, this works for everybody at different levels. Some of you are going to kind of dive into this, and it's just going to be, I'm going to start. I'm just going to test the waters. Some of you are going to be like, this is amazing. I have all this money. I need to see, will this work for that? Well, let's start now moving into the last thing, because we've talked a lot about the machine. Now let's talk about putting the machine to work using that one addition, which is the infinite banking concept. Let's add banking to the machine, okay? So like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to buy a car, which is what I'm going to show you how to get all the money back for all the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own, we have to save money. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a savings amount that you want. In this case, is just an example of using 10 grand. And also, just so you all know, this design that I'm showing you, I removed the dividends. And this is just going to show you the cash value with the guaranteed interest rate. So your numbers are going to look significantly better, but to protect ourselves, it's best that I just show you this to teach you the concept with the lowest numbers. These insurance companies that we work with have paid dividends every single year. I just did a YouTube video on this. Every year that they've been around. And the youngest insurance company we work with is 142 years old. The oldest is 172 or 76 years old. They've never missed a dividend payment. But in this example, I just removed the dividend just to show you it's about the process, not the product, okay? So you're going to save $10,000 a year or X amount of dollars per month, 667. I think that's what that works out to be. And then we're going to have immediate access to our money. If you put 10 grand in one of these policies in a premium deposit, you're going to have access to a percentage of your money immediately in the first 30 days, which I'll cover that in a second. But here, we're saving up for a specific purpose of buying a car. So it took 3 years of saving $10,000 to have enough money in the policy to buy a $25,000 car. So in the third year, after saving this money for 3 years, what we would do is take out a loan from the insurance company. Now, this is the first time I've mentioned this. And many of you are thinking, well, wait, hold on, Chris. That's my money. I saved that money. Why would I have to take a loan from the insurance company? I don't want to take a loan. That's my money. I want to use my money. Hold on a second. Trust me. Remember the math and the car and the really good bank. You want to take a loan. Mark my words. And the reason is, if we take a loan from the insurance company for $25,000, how much money in this exact example is in your policy earning guaranteed interest and dividends? And the companies we work with, just so you know, the lowest, 575. Okay, that's what the dividend crediting rate is, and the lowest, and the highest is 6.4. Okay, just so you know. So how many of you would want to earn that 575 dividend crediting rate on 29,204? Yeah, Marcia said it right? All of it. So You saved up 29,204. Now, I know some of you are thinking, yeah, but I put 30 in. Why would I only have 29,204? Well, folks, there is a cost for that life insurance. Even though we put the lowest death benefit on, there's still a cost for that. And we're going to see that cost impact our cash value in the first 3 years, sometimes only in the first year, depending on how we build it and how much money you're putting in. It's either the first year to third year. And Christy knows this. We've done lots of policies for her and her family. So it's inefficient in the first couple of years because we are also buying a death benefit. Now, if some of you are like, I don't care about my family, I don't want to leave my family anything, great. Guess what? This isn't for you. That's fine. But just understand that there is a cost for that death benefit. You're going to see that cost just like you are here in the numbers, usually in the first 1 to 3 years. So you put 30 in and you only had 29,204. We take a loan from the insurance company for $25,000. Now, let me just explain you loans. They will never check your credit. They will never ask any questions outside of, is this money going to you? What account do you want it to go to? Is it part of a marital decree or divorce? And are you subject to any back government taxes or something like that? There's like 4 questions. If you answer no to all of them and you tell them where you want it, great. Within 36 hours or less, the insurance company will put the money right into your bank account. So now you got 25 grand, but it was a loan. So let's just discuss that. When you take a loan from an insurance company that you have a specially designed whole life with, what you're actually doing is the insurance company is allowing you to use part of your death benefit while you're alive. So that $25,000 loan that they gave you came from their general account. And what they do is they go in and they subtract that loan from the death benefit that they would pay if you died the next day. So if you died the next day, what the insurance companies would do is make themselves whole on that $25,000 loan by paying $25,000 less in death benefit. But by doing it that way, that allows the insurance company to do is to keep all of your money, all of your cash value in your account earning interest and dividends. Cool, right? Because if you're making 5.75 and it costs you 5 to borrow the money, what are you making? A spread, aren't you? We'll get more into that in a little bit. So that's how that works. Let's move on because I beat that to death right there. But that should have really helped some of you understand how and why this works and why you'd want to take a loan. Because if you take a loan at a lower interest rate than what the insurance company pays you, you're doing the same thing a bank does. You're literally making the spread. You are. Okay, so now we take the 25 grand and we buy the car. Now, remember when we did Donna's, did Donna make monthly payments back to the bank? Indeed, she did. And she made those monthly payments at a rate of 6%, did she not? Yeah. So what we're going to do is because we're building a banking system, we're never going to steal from our bank. We're going to be an honest banker. And we're going to treat our bank's money the same way you would treat Bank of America's money. So here, we're going to set up a monthly payment. Now, here's the cool part. You're in control of this. This is your bank. You can pick whatever term you want. You can pick whatever interest rate you want. You're in control of setting all these rules. Now, how I do it, I'm just going to explain. When I buy cars, and I bought too many cars using my banking system, how much do I charge myself when I take a loan from my policy? Well, it's simple. I charge myself exactly the same amount that the dealership would have charged me. And I asked them, hey, what's the best interest rate you have for A+ credit right now? And the last car I bought was 7.4, was the best interest rate that they had. Okay, great. If the bank would charge me 7.4, well, then I'm going to charge myself 7.4. But here's the difference. These payments we're going to make, these car payments, which I know some of you are like, I don't want to make car payments. If I paid cash for a car, I don't want to make car payments. Yes, you do. Because remember, when you pay cash for a car, you lose the earning potential on all of the money you pay cash for. So we're not doing that. All of our money, all 25,000 of the money we took out is still earning interest and dividends. We did not lose the opportunity to have that money earn for us, compound for us. But we didn't have the restriction of leaving that money sitting. We got to use that money because the insurance company allowed us to take a loan against that money, but that money stayed in our account. So now when we make the payment back, $500 a month is what I'm showing you. Every payment we make back to the policy, how much money do you think is in your policy when you make a payment of $500? Anyone? So let's because I'm covering a lot of numbers here, but that's right. Christy said $500. If you own the bank and you make a payment to your bank of $500, how much money does your bank have? $500. If you made a $500 car payment to Bank of America, how much money do you have in your bank the next day? $500 less. Bank of America has $500 more. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? When you are the bank and you are in control of the money, you don't leak any money. But why are we making payments back to our policy with interest and principal? Well, because it's exactly what you would do if you used money from someone else's bank. Treat your money the same way you would treat any other bank's money. That's the rule. Okay, so now let's put the math behind this. This is where it gets super fun. I just wanted to cover all the bases because Christy was so gracious to give me that time that I'm going deep down some of these rabbit holes so you fully understand what I'm telling you so that there are great questions at the end. So here we go. 7 years in this program, 7 years of creating our own banking system. We have made $10,000 premium deposits every year, which means we've put $70,000 into our banking system. Not only that, we took a loan for $25,000 in the third year, and we made $500 payments every month for a period of 5 years, meaning we paid $30,000 back to our banking system. That's $100,000. So we have put a capital injection into our banking system at this point, 7 years in, of $100,000 in this example. But we did take $25,000 out. So we have to subtract that because we used $25,000 of that money. So our true net injection is $75,000 over 75 years. Okay, everybody's got that. Now look at line number 7 and look at cash value and money market account. How much money is in your account after buying the first car and paying for it? $67,881. You put in 75 and you got 67,881 back for the first car, which means you got 91 cents of every dollar back for the very first automobile you bought using your own banking system. And the only reason it's only 91 cents on the first car is because you had some expenses early before you were compounding called the cost of insurance. And I'm going to cover some of those expenses in a little bit. But nonetheless, even though you've bought a death benefit and you've got a death benefit to protect your family, you got 91 cents of every dollar back for a car that is still sitting in the driveway. You didn't have to sell the car. Does that car have value? Yeah, absolutely. Could you sell that car? Yeah, not for $25,000, but you probably get 10, 12 grand for that car. So did you actually lose money on the first car? Well, not if you sold it, but you didn't get all the money back for the very first car you bought in this example. You got 91 cents back. However, the beauty of this whole program is you're never going to just buy one car. So we're going to buy our second car. And usually the second car purchase is, well, many of you could kind of tell me the story, but you had a squeaky sound in your brakes or something happened and you had to take the car in. It's 5 years old. You paid for it. You're proud. You no longer owe a penny to the bank on your car. But now you're in the dealership and the dealer gives you that bad news phone call. I got some bad news for you. Yeah, well, we looked at that squeaky sound and you're going to need all new brakes all the way around the car. And also your inspections due, and we noticed that your tires won't pass inspection. And by the way, hey, did you notice that sound in your engine? Yeah. So one of the things we noticed is that you got some things wrong going on up in the motor. So we really should fix them now because the car is going to eventually break down. And you're going to be stranded. Oh, how much is that? It's not all that much. It's only going to be $5,600 to do the repairs. What are you thinking at that point? Time to buy a new car. So you go out to the dealership and you're like, all right, you're kicking tires out there. You find a car. You're like, this is a nice one. You get in the car, you shut the door and you do this. Oh, it's the new car smell. So your second car is now a reality. But in the second car example here, remember the first car is still bought and paid for in the driveway. You do not need to trade the car in, although you could, and now you know had value. But here in the second car, for illustrative purposes only, I would never recommend you do this. From years 8 to 12, we're no longer going to make any premium deposits into your policy. No more premium deposits. But we're going to buy a second car. So we take another loan out for $25,000. Now, all of your money, the $51,000 shown plus the $25,000 is all in your account earning interest and dividends. So about $76,521, if I'm doing my math right, is earning interest and dividends uninterrupted. But you bought the car for $25,000. You make the same monthly payments, $500. You were making $500 payments on the first car. You just continue those payments on the second car. Now let's do the math. No new premium deposits, so that's a zero. $30,000 is what you pay for the car over 5 years. Okay. All that money went back into your bank and we bought a car. So $30,000 minus the 25. So our true net injection for the second car is $5,000. Let's do the math. At the end of the 7th year, remember we had cash value in our money multiplier account, our specially designed whole life of $67,881. Now, even after making no premium deposits, we've been compounding for all these years. Plus, we paid ourselves back principal and interest on that car. We have $91,473. So our account has grown by $23,592. But that isn't how much money you made for buying 2 cars. Let's do the real math. Yeah, I always trick people there because everybody's like, oh, wow, I made 23 grand for buying cars. No, you didn't. You first put 75 grand in the first 7 years, did you not? Net. You put 75,000 of capital injections into your banking system net in the first 5 years. Okay. Or sorry, 7 years. And for the second car, the next 5 years, you put 5 grand in net. So 75 plus 5 is what? $80,000. So your total net injection into your banking system is $80,000 by the math as per this example. Look at year 12. How much cash value do you have in your specially designed whole life? $91,473. You put 80 in, you've got 91,473 in. So how much money did you make for buying 2 cars? Well, 11,473 would be the number. You made $11,000 plus for buying 2 cars. Both of those cars are bought and paid for in your driveway. I have just shown you mathematically how to get all the money back for every single car you buy, drive, and own. How many of you like that? Now, can you imagine what it would look like for the 3rd car, the 4th car, the 5th car? Do you know what the compounding interest would look like on this thing then? Your numbers would just keep going up. And that's the beauty of this system. When you become your own bank and you tap into uninterrupted compounding interest, the beauty is in the future, you will always have more money than you have today, guaranteed. It can be no other way because it is just mathematics.
We've got some questions if you don't care to take some here for a minute.
No, I love it. That's, I think, a great, like, little, let's pause for just a second. The final part that I'm going to go into here is super fun, and it's going to probably answer a lot of the questions, but you mind if you want to tell me the questions, or you want me to just go through and cherry pick them? Because I think there's some great.
Well, I know one that keeps getting asked is, if I have an IRA, can it be transferred somehow into a policy?
If it's a Roth IRA, yes, because it's after-tax dollars. But if it's a traditional IRA, you got to kind of draw a line in the sand. And when you go from qualified retirement money, like an IRA, 401k, and you cross over into this world, which is the non-qualified world, same as a bank account, you trigger taxes. So now all of a sudden, if you took money from a traditional IRA and you put it into this, pre-59 and a half, not only would you pay tax on that money, you would be penalized 10% as an early withdrawal penalty on your IRA. So I typically say that's not the best way to do it. Keep your qualified money qualified and use new savings to go into this, which usually I tell people, back down what you're putting into a 401k or a qualified retirement plan to the match and use the difference to fund your banking system.
Okay, that was another question. The 401k, is it wise to take a loan off of the 401k and put into one of these policies?
I typically don't teach that. I could mathematically show you that that would make sense, which I have done that in YouTube videos. But typically what I would do is take the loan from the 401k instead of putting it into the policy. Now, actually, let me give you the caveat to that. If the death benefit was really important to you, yes, that would make sense. But if the death benefit was not important, I would suggest taking the loan from the 401k, use that to buy the car, okay? Then make car payments, just like I showed, and pay them back to your 401k. And in doing so, by paying your 401k back with interest, you'd be putting more back in the 401k than came out. But the interest charged on the loan from the 401k provider, all of that interest goes back into your policy. So it's kind of the same thing is what I'm showing you, but they don't have a death benefit. There's lots of rules. And unfortunately, 401ks, you're limited to 50,000 or 50% you can take as a loan. But great question.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, so on the policy, it shows a guaranteed cash value and a cash value of paid up additions. Which is the cash value you can draw from?
So this example, I just used the guaranteed, but you'd be able to draw from the total cash value, which is the non-guaranteed cash value, which includes just the dividend. So when you look on an illustration, which I don't have one here to show you today, and I'm on the wrong computer, but when you look at an illustration, there's a guaranteed column, and then there's a non-guaranteed cash value column. The only difference between the guaranteed and non-guaranteed is the dividend. And remember, I told you, every company we deal with, every one of them, the youngest is 142 or 143 years old. They have never not paid a dividend. So now that you know that they've never missed a dividend, not through the Great Depression, not through the Great Recession, not through the pandemic, never missed one, what number would be the best one for you to look at? The guaranteed column or the non-guaranteed where you include the dividend?
Yeah, wow.
The non-guaranteed.
Okay, I'm about to get up and run around the room. I'm so excited. I'm not kidding, people. This is you're learning with me, and I want to tell you guys before we go on with questions, the video link that Chris and I did a couple of weeks ago, he breaks this down on his digital board in elementary showing you line by line how this is working. So if you want to see something else crazy, then visit that when we finish up here today. Another person or several want to know, do you work with Canadians?
Yes, absolutely. We do. It's through a Canadian partner, but 100%. So you would still book a call with us, with one of our money mentors. We would take your info and we would pass it on to the gentleman who owns the company up there. His name's Jason Lowe, Jayson. He's got an amazing company, one of the most well-known up in Canada, and we trust them with our clients up in Canada. But yes, it works just like this in Canada. The only difference, and you probably knew this was coming, the tax advantages that I talked about with the internal buildup of the cash value that we benefit from here in the States, you don't benefit from up there, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your government doesn't like that tax-free stuff. Except for
Okay.
those
So,
TFSAs. They give you those.
okay. So for all of the people asking about doing a one-time dump in, do
Mm-hmm.
you allow that?
Oh, yeah. So now I don't have, you know what I'll do? If we have time at the end, I'll pull up one. Yes. I would say 90+% of all the clients we work with do a dump in deposit. Now, I did not show that. Remember, I just showed a flat 10,000 premium deposit going in. But let's just say somebody had 20 grand sitting in their bank account in a savings account earning 3 or 4%. They're like, hey, can I put that 20 grand into the policy all up front and just have the policy pay me more interest and dividends on that money? Absolutely. In math, like these numbers would be significantly better if we showed a dump in on there, because think about it. You got 20 grand earning interest and dividends compounding immediately. Almost all of that 20 grand would be available, usually about 92%. Like day one is available of that full dump in. So most of our clients do dump in deposits. Yeah. So, and there's lots of questions, folks. Such awesome questions. But one person had mentioned, hey, cars aren't $25,000 anymore. Like, wake up. Of course they're not. But we had way more than 25,000 for the second car. We could have bought a $75,000 car for the second car. This is just an example, folks. Like, I have lots of YouTube videos of me buying my Porsches. Like, you want to talk about expensive cars? Like, I've got those in there too. Like, it doesn't matter the dollar amount, but you just have to understand it's your banking system. So you can't buy a car for more than what you've saved in your banking system. This next part is going to answer a lot of the questions people had, and it's going to blow your mind, because this is a real case study example. Now, this car example is just an example, okay? Not a real one. I just show this. Yours will look better than that. But this next example, actually, let me just get this one out of the way. The 3 rules to get all the money back for the cars is right there. Pay yourself first. You have to save money in order for this to work. Pay yourself with interest. You have no problem paying all these finance companies interest, but yet when you're talking about your own money, your own bank, you need to pay yourself back with interest. I just do it at the same rate the bank would charge me. And recycle and recapture money. Even though the insurance company will never ask you for the loan to be repaid, recycle and recapture the money, because you are increasing your wealth by doing it. There is no reason to cheat yourself. You're stealing from yourself if you are not repaying your policy. And I know right now for some of you that doesn't make sense, but when you kind of keep watching this and seeing this, that is a vital part of building wealth, because you can't leak money. And you know darn well, if you just leave it in your bank account, what's going to happen to it? I don't mean to say this in the wrong way, but if you leave that money in your bank account, it's going to be gone. Bank accounts, checking accounts specifically, are like the black hole. Whatever goes in them at the end of the month, it's zeroed out. Well, not really, but there's usually not much left. If yours works anyway like mine, but most people are that way. All right, so this next one, if it works for a car, what else does it work for? Debts. This is a real claim. So I love doing this one because it's near and dear. It's old, okay? So this policy is again, not as good as the new ones we do today because it's old. But this client came to one of the events that Brent was speaking at and watched the presentation you just saw. He came to us after that presentation and he said, hey, I have a problem. Remember, I said, you have to have a problem that we're going to solve for you in order for this to work. And we said, sure, what is your problem? And he pulls out a piece of paper and he says, here's my problem. I have 9 third-party debts totaling $478,774 a month, but that's not the real problem. I make monthly payments on these debts of $5,777 a month. That's $69,324 a year. Now, remember, this is almost 10 years old. 69 grand was a good living 10 years ago and he was a chiropractor. Okay, so he's like, I'm paying $69,000 on my debts. Can you help me? The first question we asked this person is, we said, are you saving money today? To which the chiropractor said, yes, I put money into a 401k through my practice and I save money in a bank account. We said, how much? And he said, well, he was saving a little more than this, but he basically had $25,000 a year that he was saving. It was slightly more, but that's how much money he said, that's the amount that I would like to save with this. So the first thing we said is we said, all right, if you're saving 25 grand, what if we just stop saving for a few years? Because that's a real problem. What if we just stop saving that 25 grand? We just use the 25 grand and we use it to pay off debts. A lot of you have been thinking that. Like when you talk about debt, a lot of you are just like, why wouldn't I just take the money that I would normally put into the policy and I just use that to pay down debts? Well, by the math, if we did that, if we just took the 25 grand and just plopped it down on these debts, it would take 19 years. Run the math yourself. It would take 19 years. And when we told him that, he's like, oh, heck no. I cannot do this for 19 more years. And we said, okay. And we ran some numbers and we came back to him and we said, how about this? Are you willing to change where that 25,000 goes first? And are you willing to apply a process, change one thing with how you use money? And if you are willing to do that, all of this debt will be gone in 6.5 years and you don't have to save any more money. You don't have to work any harder and you don't have to take on any risk. What do you think he said, folks? Show me how. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through in about 20 minutes, not even, how we did this for the chiropractor and how you could do this yourself. So again, in the first year, what we did is we set up a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy for which he was making premium deposits of $25,000. Now, we design policies different today than we did back then, but back then, these are the numbers I'm using. You would have more cash value. Christy could vouch, like her policies had more cash value than this, but about 60% back then is how much of the cash value we were able to use immediately in the first 30 days. So he puts 25 grand in immediately. Remember that immediately in the first 30 days, we took the first loan from the policy, and that was for $14,863, for which the insurance company was charging interest back then of 4%. Today, it's more like 5.25%. Okay. That's how much the insurance companies, for the most part, charge on interest, and they vary, but it was 4% back then. So we took the 14,863 and we organized all of his debts. And you already know this, from lowest to highest. There's lots of ways. There's snowball, there's avalanche, but we did it from lowest to highest back then. And we took that $14,000 loan. We paid off Discover, we paid off Lowe's, and we paid off Nordstrom, which freed up $161 from Discovery, and it freed up $287 from Lowe's. What we told the chiropractors, we said, hey, we want you to go to whatever bank you want to go to in your town, and we want you to open a second checking account, but no debit cards and no checks needed. Just open a second debit or a second bank account. And then what we want you to do is we want you to pay that $161 you used to give Discover and that $287 you used to give the Lowe's that you no longer owe to them. And we want you to put that $448 a month into that second, what we call segregated bank account. Okay, fair enough. So we're taking the money we used to give to debtors and now we're saving that in a new bank account. Don't ever use your same bank account you pay your bills from. This won't work. I'm telling you. It just won't. We're just not strong enough mentally, and we're not conditioned enough to do this if you put the money in a regular bank account where you pay all your bills. You must open a second segregated account for this to work. I can't preface that enough. Okay, so we did that. So after 1 year, this chiropractor changed where his $25,000 in savings went. He added this step, which is called the infinite banking concept, and now he owes $5,329 to the third-party debtors, but he's saving $448 a month in that segregated bank account. Everybody's following where I'm at, right? If there's a question or somebody's lost, please stop me and I'll start, because I'm going to go faster as we go. This is pretty simple stuff. Year 2, okay, we're going into the second year. Same thing. We deposit $25,000 into that specially designed and engineered whole life and a premium deposit. But now we immediately, in the first 30 days, take out $16,571. You notice how that's more than it was the first year? Compounding interest. All of the money from the first year is still earning interest and dividends. So therefore, every year we take a loan from the policy, we're going to be able to take more money than we did the last year. Okay, 16,000. It's still not 100% of what he deposited. Some of you are thinking, this is stupid. Why would I put 25 in and only be able to use 16? Hang on in a second. You'll know why you would do this. So we take the 16,571 as a loan from the insurance company. We then go to that segregated bank account, which we've accumulated 5374, and we take 5374 out of that account. We have 21,945 combined. What we do is we use that to pay off Nordstrom. We use it to pay off Wells Fargo. We use it to pay off that private loan, and we pay down the BMW. So we no longer owe these payments or the interest I want to preface that. Do you remember the interest on Discover and Lowe's? It was double digits. And then Nordstrom's 3, Wells Fargo's 21, the private loan is 10%. That's interest we used to give away. We're no longer giving it away because what we're doing now is we're not paying the third-party debts, but we're still making the same payments to that segregated account. But that $1,917 that we're saving every month in that segregated account, that is like earning whatever the APR is on all those debts, which is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 12%. Folks, people go to extreme levels of risk to make 12% in their investment accounts and their 401ks. Risk when they make monthly payments to credit cards at 20%. If they would just pay the credit card off with the money they're putting in the 401k and then make the payment to the credit card to their bank account or to their 401k, they'd be making whatever return is they're giving away. See, that's the thing people miss. This is so simple. But anyway, second year, we now have paid off all those debts. We're now saving $1,917 a month, not working harder, longer, taking on any risk. And we only owe $3,860 to third-party debtors moving forward. We're 2 years into this. Third year, this is where it gets fun. Third year, chiropractor puts $25,000 in premium deposits in his policy. He immediately goes to take a loan and he's like, hey, I can take more than I put in. He takes a loan for $25,541. Now let's just stop. From this point forward, for this chiropractor, there will never, ever, ever, ever be a year he will take out less than what he puts in for the rest of his life. But to get to this point, he had to give up for 2 years. He had to lose money because of that cost of insurance in order to now be able to make money the rest of his life. And you'll see that as we go through this. I don't think any of you 5%ers on here would have a problem with giving up for 2 years to make for the rest of your life. Let's keep going. So he's got $23,000 in payments saved in that segregated account. So 25 from the loan from the policy, 23 from the segregated account. He's got $48,545 now that he can apply to debts. He pays his BMW off, pays his boat loan off, and pays down his condo. He's now only $283,146 in debt, to which he's making payments to third-party debtors for $2,100, but now he's saving $3677 in that segregated account. Pretty cool how fast this goes. Now compounding interest is going to do a crazy job of paying the rest of this off. But before, I want to go back to what I mentioned in the middle that nobody liked when I first said it, marathon. It takes time. So how much time did it take this chiropractor? 3 years. He put $25,000 in premium deposits in over 3 years. That's $75,000. Every year he took loans, 14, 16, and 25. He took out $55,000 in loans. Okay, that's the marathon. So if we look at that, how much money's left in the policy earning interest and dividends? You all should know the answer because it is not $20,000. Most people want to take the 75 minus the loans of 55 and say, oh, there's $20,000 left. No, there's not. There's 75,000 left in the policy because that's the cash value that's earning interest and dividends regardless of the loans. The loans were an advance of the general account funds, the death benefit, future death benefit. They just advanced that to you. Yes, they charged interest, and we're going to cover that in a moment. Year 4, let's keep going faster. Deposits $25,000 in the policy, takes out $26,304. Now let me just do this math for you real quick. I want all of you to kind of learn how the math is done for cash on cash. Right there. The chiropractor took out $26,304. Okay. He put in $25,000. That means $1,304 was his true net gain. $1,304 divided into the $25,000 he put in means that he made 5.2% on his money that year. The only reason I gave you that number, that's the cash on cash return. We're 4 years in. Just remember what that was. 5.2% is what he made. Okay, $26,000 in a loan. His $3677 that he has in the segregated account works out to be $44,000 over 12 months. So he's got $44,000 in that segregated account. So he's got a total of $70,439. So he takes that and he dumps that on the condo. Christy knows this, and all of you do. When you make a principal payment on a mortgage, nothing happens to the payment. Your payment stays the same. So this is kind of a boring year for the chiropractor because his cash flow doesn't improve. He's still making $2,100 payments on the 2 mortgages, but he's still saving $3677. So we go on to the 5th year, puts in $25,000, takes out $27,090. Now let's do the math again. Remember last year in the 4th year, he made 5.2% net of cost of insurance, net of commissions, net of policy service fee year over year. This year, let's do the math. There's only 1 year further. $2,790 minus $25,000. He made $2,090. Divide that into the amount he put in that year, 25 grand, 8.39%. See how that number is going up? How fast is that compounding starting to work? So fifth year, takes out a loan of $27,090 and payments of $44,124 are what were in that segregated account. So he's got a total of $71,229. Pays off his condo in the fifth year. His only debt now in the fifth year, at the end of the fifth year, is his home. He owns $91,099 on his home, which is $1,221 a month, where he's now saving $4,556. He could stop here, but you never stop. You finish the game. So we go on to the sixth year. Somebody asked this question earlier. I'll answer it. In the sixth year, this chiropractor goes to make his deposit for $25,000, but he realizes, because he gets notified by the insurance company, he cannot put 25 grand in. He has reached his MEC limit. The policies we designed today, 10 years would be the number. With these older ones, yes, 6 years was pretty common. So he can't put 25 grand in the policy. He can only put $10,000 in. So he makes his $10,000 deposit in premium deposit into the policy. To then he takes a loan immediately in the first 30 days and he takes out $13,000. He has kind of an epiphany at this point. If you put 10 grand in your bank and you went back to the bank in December and you took out $13,000, what return did you make that year on your money? 30+%. But wait a second, because he takes a loan from the policy, he's got to pay the insurance company back back then. It's 5.25 now in the one insurance company. Does anyone care that the insurance company charged him 4 when he made 30? Just asking for a friend. So he gets so excited about that. He says, hey, I need to continue to expand my banking system. I have more money I want to put into my banking system now that he knows how it works. So he goes to us and we set up a second policy or a second branch office. There's not a bank in the world that has just one branch. They all have multiple branches, and your private banking system will have multiple branches as well. So he puts in 25 grand into the second policy, takes out 14,863 immediately in the first 30 days. So let's do the math. He was saving 4,456 in that segregated account. That's 54 grand. Combine them, he's got 82,633, pays his house off, which is 76,450. He's completely out of debt. He's now able to save $5,777. Now, let me pause. He's got $5,777 every month going into that bank account. Now, let me ask 2 questions. Number 1, during this 6-year period, if he had an emergency happen, a roof needed to be put on his house, he had a main water line break, his car broke down, could he have gone into that segregated account at any time and taken money out of there? Absolutely. All of his money was liquid. He never lost liquidity of his money. He stuck to the plan and paid his debts off because that was his objective. But if something happened in an emergency, he could have used this money to pay the emergency. Now he's done. But now he has a problem because now the bank is keeping $5,777 every month. That's over 60 grand. So he then goes into his policy and he says, hey, I have all the outstanding loans into the policy. I know the insurance company's never asked me for these loans to be repaid back. They've just asked for the interest every year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this $5,777 and I'm going to set up a loan repayment back to the insurance company. I'm going to start paying the loan back to myself. So every month he takes that $5,777 and he starts paying his loan down. Every payment he makes to his policy's loan balance means he has $5,777 available the very next day. No liquidity lost. Folks, when we really look at this, all of that involved our team doing the work. It's called the implementation team. We have an entire team that works with our clients. There's no cost as long as you do your policies with us. We did all of this for the chiropractor. This is just a snapshot of what the map looks like and how we paid all these debts off. There's not a client that we help. We don't just sell a policy and say, hey, pat you on the butt and say, good luck. We work with you quarterly to make sure that your objectives and your goals are taken care of, whether it's cars or debts or whatever. We build the tools and help you implement this concept because we know just seeing a video isn't enough to fully grasp how this works. So we got to help you. Okay. And that's exactly what we're designed to do. If he continued to pay those houses back to the bank, that means he would have paid $493,967 back to the banks. But he didn't. Remember, he paid them off. But he still earned interest and dividends, and I did it just at the interest rate of 4%, okay? I didn't do it at the 5.75. At 4% interest compounding on that amount, he'd actually accumulate $749,611 in his policies. Just money he would have given away to the bank on the house mortgages. Now he keeps that money. I'm not going to have time to really get into private money club, but I do want to just show you how it works. Let's just say you have no debts, you have no cars, and you're like, well, how else could I use this? Well, banks lend money, don't they? Well, that's exactly what we do. I created a company called Private Money Club to facilitate this. And it was really a company I created just to solve my own problem. I had money when I sold off my rentals, and I wanted to lend that money out. And I found it very difficult to find good borrowers that knew how to be a good borrower. So I said, all right, I'm going to create a community that's free for everybody to use. And that community solves a problem for two people. And there are only these two types of people in the world. So I serve a really big audience and solve a big problem for a lot of people. There are people who have money. Many of you in here have money and you all have a problem. You want to make more. Fair enough. Me too. And then the other side of the coin is the other people, the people that need money to make money. So people that need money to make money in real estate, they need to borrow that money. So what PMC does is it brings people with money together with people that need money in a community that operates and looks kind of just like a dating site. Except for we're not bringing men and women together to date. We're bringing people with money together with people that need money. And the average deals on Private Money Club right now are between 12 and 18%. That's how much money they're paying to borrow money short term on these fix and flips, these burrs, and these various rentals. So if I just, instead of borrowing money, from or taking money from a bank account or a 401k, if I did it from my policy and I borrowed the money from the policy, lent the money on PMC, took the interest payments from PMC like Mike in the first story and put that money back into the policy, how much money would I make? Well, I have a whole YouTube video that shows that. It's substantial money. This is what it looks like. This is the deals page. These are some of the deals that have been up there. This one's old, obviously, but 140,000 first lien, 12%. Community tab, so you can go in and just post anything, get to know people. But Money Talks, Private Money Club speaks its language. I'm going to stop sharing here and kind of just come back over, and I want to see if there's any time for questions, but that's my presentation. That's the infinite banking concept. I hope none of you feel like I tried selling you something, because I did not. I taught you something. Now the burden's on you to do something with that. And there's a link that we're going to put in the chat, and we have been. If you want to book a call with our team, then book a call and let's talk about your individual situation and how we can help you solve that problem using this process.